In the late 1960s and early 1970s, BMW began forging a performance image for its cars that had been dormant for decades. At the forefront of this assault was the famous 2002 Coupe, a car that was raced here in long-distance events by the likes of Conrad Sparmer, Frank Rundle and Karl-Heinz Peters. Internationally, the 2002 was already the car to beat, while the famous Batmobile, the bewinged monster based on the 3-litre CSL Coupe, would go on to greater racetrack glory. By the late 70s, the company had introduced its knife-edged M1, BMW's first and some would argue only supercar. The M1, like the Batmobile, is ultra-rare in South Africa, with only a handful of examples of each residing here. Yes, this was a street-going car back in 1972, although in Germany the car had to be sold with the wing pack in the boot. As for the smaller coupe, this recreation of a famous racing 2002 is all new on the South African historic racing scene, now in 2006.
In 1988, I won the South African Historic Saloon Car Championship. And the bug has never really bit me, and I'm absolutely passionate about these 2002s. And when I decided what type of car to build for the current series, I thought that it would be quite appropriate to try and replicate the official works car as they raced so successfully in 1969. And I wanted to try and emulate the likes of Niki Lauda, who incidentally had his first works drive in a 1969 BMW 1602.
The idea with this car was to build more than just another 2002 race replica. It's an exact replica of the 1971 Alpina 2002 with flared wheel arches, orange paint with matte black boot and bonnet lid, BBS wheels, and even a gaudily contrasting green front spoiler. The car was built by Mike O'Sullivan's Mosport race car workshop based at Kyalami, and it involved piecing together bits and pieces from all over the world.
Half of the body, the rear of the body, is the wreck of an official Alpina racing car. We were fortunate enough to bring in the wrecked body shell, which truly was a wreck. And from two wrecked cars, we constructed what you see today.
Clive Massel and the Mosport team spent months on researching every detail of the car so that it would be historically correct, true to a heritage that had launched the careers of some great racing drivers.
The finish, in my opinion, is absolutely superb. I can tell you categorically that in terms of the engine, the gearbox and the diff, it's 100% 2002 authentic. We don't run any of the latest gear in this car, and the bodywork is probably the closest you'll ever get to the actual works car.
The 2002 uses a 4-cylinder engine that's perhaps the most famous in BMW's history. These engines started out as 1,600 units in 1966 in the 1602 and ended up in Formula One cars, which, turbocharged by BMW Motorsport, were developing over 1,300 horsepower in 1985.
Many of the 2002 clubs internationally were so excited about the project that they gave us some very, very valuable information, to the extent that the stickers that you see on the car have all been copied and replicated, including the Castrol sticker in the front of the car, which is a genuine replica of the 1971 Castrol sticker that appeared on the works cars.
Mosport's Mike O'Sullivan is not only a great motorsport engineer, but a great racing driver as well. He has raced everything from Rover V8s through BMWs and Fiats to Subaru Imprezas, and whenever Mike is on the grid, sparks will fly. He and his brother Paddy have built and driven some of the country's most memorable race cars, and continue to do so, with some exciting projects always under development.
So that's one.
We're looking at a car here that's over 30 years old, and technology has certainly moved on. We've tried to keep the car as authentic as possible. It was completely sanded down. and there were little spots of rust that had to be taken care of, and the wheel arches had to be remolded onto the car.
This is the car that superseded the BMW 2002 as far as the factory racing effort was concerned in the early 1970s. Known as the Batmobile for obvious reasons, it's based on the BMW CSL Coupe, and this South African replica is owned by Uli Sahn and runs an M88 24-valve 6-cylinder 635 engine. The 24-valve engine was a development of the 6-cylinder unit used on the BMW M1. This M1 Coupe was recently restored by BMW South Africa's Special Vehicles Department, run by Donnie Himan, and it has an interesting history. It was used as a pace car for an international sports car race in the late 1980s, and famously left the track on the old Kyalami circuit at Barbecue Corner, confusing the drivers of Porsche 956s and the like. This 4-spoke steering wheel will quicken the pulse rate of any Beamer enthusiast. It is present and correct on one of just 2 road-going CSL Batmobiles in the country. This pristine example owned by champion veteran tennis player Frank Punchek. The CSL is a lightweight 3-litre car with a rated 206 horsepower or 154 kilowatts, which was astounding back in 1973 when it was launched. Yes, all those stripes, wheel arch eyebrows, bonnet strakes and wings were factory-fit equipment. The final version of the much-loved 2002 was this TII, also owned by Clive Massel. It featured a fuel-injected engine and was a potential alpha-beta in the early 1970s, despite its typically restrained German interior. Today, 2002s are becoming increasingly collectible. And with race cars like the Alpina flying the flag once again, enthusiasm for the car can only deepen, thanks to Massel and his Mosport crew.